A wise woman is not the one who simply waits for life to happen. She is the one who dares to make life happen. She does not just dream of a better tomorrow, she boldly acts today. And her strength is not in loudness, but in her alignment with the quiet guidance of God within. The world may tell her to settle, to shrink, to silence her voice, but she listens instead to the eternal whisper of the divine, reminding her, "You were born for more." Every soul has been given a spark by God. For some, that spark remains hidden, buried under fear, doubt, and hesitation. But a wise woman is one who recognizes that spark, nurtures it, and dares to turn it into a flame. She understands that life is not meant to be lived in the shadow of fear, but in the light of courage. Acting boldly does not mean arrogance. It means living in truth, in faith, and in the conviction that God has placed her here for a purpose. When she dares to step forward, she becomes a light not just for herself, but for countless others who are silently waiting for permission to shine. Boldness rooted in wisdom is not about ego. It is about surrender, surrendering to God's guidance, and having the courage to act on it. This is the power of a wise woman who dares to act boldly. Boldness is born from faith, not fear. When we think of courage, many people imagine someone standing tall in front of thousands, making a grand declaration, or doing something extraordinary for the world to notice. But the deepest kind of a boldness is often quiet, unseen, and rooted in something far greater than human applause. It is born out of trust in God. A wise woman understands that fear will always try to pull her back. Fear will whisper, "What if you fail? What if others laugh at you? What if you're not strong enough?" But faith whispers something else. Faith whispers, "Move forward. You are not alone. Every step you take, I walk with you." This difference between listening to fear or listening to faith is the difference between a life of hesitation and a life of fulfillment. In our daily lives, fear disguises itself in so many ways. It hides in the hesitation of starting something new, in the silence when we want to speak the truth, in the doubt that keeps us from pursuing our passion. Imagine a woman who has always dreamt of starting her own small business. She has the skill, she has the idea, and she even has the support of her family. But every night, when she thinks about taking the step, fear takes over her thoughts. Fear paints pictures of failure, of people mocking her if things don't work out, of her losing what little she already has. This fear can paralyze. Yet when she turns inward and remembers that life is not hers alone to carry, that God has given her abilities and opportunities for a reason, something shifts. She realizes her role is not to control the outcome, but to take the step with faith. That moment when she places her trust in God over the voice of fear is when true boldness is born. Faith is not blind. Faith is deeply aware that the path ahead will not always be easy. A wise woman knows that faith does not guarantee the absence of storms, but it gives her the strength to walk through them without losing her spirit. Think of the seed that is buried in the soil. From the outside, it looks as though it is trapped in darkness, surrounded by weight, unable to move. But the seed, if it trusts the process of life, begins to push through. With each small effort, it grows roots downward and shoots upward. This is boldness. Not because the seed knows exactly what lies above the soil, but because it trusts the light that it has not yet seen. In the same way, when a woman acts from faith, she moves not because the path is clear, but because she knows the one who lights the way. Every woman, at some point, faces crossroads in life. The choice is often between staying in the comfort of what is known or stepping into the uncertainty of growth. Fear will always cling to the familiar, but faith encourages the leap into the unknown. For example, think of a woman who stays silent in meetings, even though she has brilliant ideas. Fear tells her, stay quiet. What if your idea is rejected? But one day, with faith in God's strength flowing through her, she decides to speak. Her voice trembles at first, but the moment she shares her thoughts, she notices heads nodding in agreement. The atmosphere shifts, and she realizes that her boldness not only gave her a voice, but opened doors for others to share as well. This is how faith works. It transforms individual courage into collective change. Another truth is that boldness rooted in faith gives peace, even if the outcome doesn't look like success. A woman who acts with faith does not measure her courage by how people respond. She measures it by whether she listened to the voice of God over the voice of fear. If she dares to act boldly in truth, she has already succeeded. The results may take time, the recognition may or may not come, but her soul is already victorious because she chose faith over fear. This inner peace is what allows her to keep moving, to keep trying, to keep shining without being dependent on external validation. Daily life is full of small examples where this boldness plays out. A mother who dares to raise her children with values in a world that constantly pushes distractions. A student who dares to choose honesty over cheating, even when others laugh at her. A woman who dares to walk away from negativity, even if it means walking alone. Each act of boldness might seem ordinary on the surface, but when done with faith, they become extraordinary steps of alignment with God. The world may not notice these choices, but the divine sees every one of them. Boldness born from faith also creates an aura of strength that others feel. When a woman lives this way, people around her start to wonder what gives her such calm confidence. They see her walking into challenges without being crushed. They see her speaking truth without bitterness. They see her moving forward even when circumstances are uncertain. Without preaching, without forcing, her life itself becomes a lesson to others. That real courage does not come from physical power, from money, or from status. It comes from the quiet assurance that God's hand never leaves those who trust Him. So when we talk about wise women daring to act boldly, it is not about recklessness, nor is it about ego. It is about a deep surrender. It is about saying, I may not know how this will end, but I know who walks with me. That kind of faith is unshakable. That kind of courage cannot be bought or borrowed. It is cultivated through prayer, reflection, and trust. And once a woman carries this boldness, she becomes unstoppable, not because life is easy, but because she knows she is never alone in her journey. This is the essence of wisdom, to live not in fear, but in faith. To dare not because you are certain of the outcome, but because you are certain of God. And in that certainty, boldness is no longer an effort. It becomes a natural way of living. That is when a woman truly dares to act boldly, and her life becomes a living testament of faith in action. Wisdom is the foundation of true courage. Many people misunderstand boldness. They think it is about charging ahead recklessly, breaking through without thought, or proving a point just to be noticed. But true boldness is not born from arrogance. It is shaped by wisdom. And wisdom itself is the fruit of reflection, patience, and connection with God. A wise woman does not act simply because the world pressures her to, nor does she rush forward because of impulse. She takes time to listen to her heart, to her conscience, and to the quiet whispers of the divine. When she finally acts, her courage carries depth because it is rooted not in noise, but in clarity. This is the strength that makes her actions impactful. her words memorable, and her presence inspiring. Think about the difference between recklessness and courage. Imagine two women standing at the edge of a river. One jumps in without thinking, simply because she wants to appear fearless. She thrashes about, struggling against the current, and may even put herself in danger. The other woman, however, pauses. She studies the river, she notices the flow of the water, she looks at the stones beneath, and she prays for strength before stepping in. When she moves, her action may look similar. She enters the river too, but the difference is profound. One acted out of impulse, the other out of wisdom. And because her boldness was guided by understanding, she not only survives but reaches the other side with grace. This is the power of courage rooted in wisdom. In daily life, we see this difference all the time. A woman may want to speak her mind in an argument. Fear would silence her. Recklessness would make her shout without thought, causing hurt. But wisdom tells her to pause, breathe, and choose her words carefully. When she finally speaks, her voice is steady, her words are measured, and her message carries weight. People listen, not because she was loud, but because she was wise. Boldness without wisdom can destroy, but boldness with wisdom builds, heals, and transforms. Wisdom also teaches patience, and patience itself is a form of courage. In today's world, people are told that boldness means acting immediately, never waiting, always pushing forward. But a wise woman understands that not every battle is hers to fight. Not every moment is right to act. She knows that sometimes waiting is not weakness, but strength. Think of a farmer who plants seeds. If he digs them up every day to see if they are growing, he will ruin the harvest. True courage is trusting the process, and wisdom gives her the patience to allow life to unfold under God's timing. When she finally acts, her timing is powerful because it is aligned with something higher than her own desires. A daily example can be seen in the workplace. Imagine a woman working in an office where her contributions are often overlooked. She has two choices. She can boldly demand attention in anger, or she can wisely build her skill, let her work speak, and wait for the right moment to present her ideas. When the moment comes, she speaks not with frustration, but with clarity and strength. The impact is undeniable. Her wisdom guided her courage, and that combination opens doors that shouting never could. Wisdom also teaches that courage is not about being against others, but about being true to oneself. A wise woman knows that life is not a competition of egos, it is a journey of growth. When she dares to act boldly, she is not trying to prove she is better than others. She is simply honoring the truth God has placed within her. That truth might be to pursue a dream others laugh at, to walk away from relationships that no longer align with her values, or to stand firm in her integrity when shortcuts seem tempting. Courage without wisdom may push her to fight battles for approval, but courage with wisdom allows her to walk her path with dignity, even if no one claps. One of the most inspiring qualities of wisdom, guided courage, is how it inspires others without force. A woman who acts boldly but wisely leaves an impression that lingers. For example, imagine a young girl watching her mother handle a difficult situation. The mother could have chosen anger, she could have chosen despair, but instead she chose balance. She thought carefully, she prayed, and then she acted with grace. That girl may not fully understand in that moment, but she carries the lesson that true strength is not loud, it is wise. And one day, she will carry that wisdom into her own challenges. Wisdom also protects courage from burnout. Acting boldly without reflection can exhaust a person because they are constantly reacting. But when boldness is rooted in wisdom, It flows naturally, like a river that follows its course. The woman does not waste her energy on unnecessary fights. She focuses only on what truly matters, what aligns with her values, and what brings her closer to her purpose. That is why courageous women who are guided by wisdom often radiate peace. They are bold but not restless. At the heart of it, wisdom reminds us that courage is not about doing everything, it is about doing the right thing. And the right thing is often revealed not by noise, but by silence. A wise woman dares to pause, to reflect, and to seek God's guidance before stepping forward. This pause is not hesitation, it is preparation, and once she moves, her step is powerful because it carries the weight of clarity. So, when we say that wisdom is the foundation of true courage, we mean that wisdom gives boldness its direction. Without wisdom, boldness is like a wildfire, destructive and uncontrolled. But with wisdom, boldness is like a lamp, bright, steady, and guiding others in darkness. A wise woman dares to act boldly, but her boldness is never reckless, never shallow. It is thoughtful, purposeful, and deeply connected to God's plan. And that is why her courage lasts, her actions inspire, and her life becomes a testimony that real boldness is not about noise, but about wisdom in action. Boldness means saying yes to growth. Growth is never comfortable, and comfort never allows growth. A wise woman understands this deeply. She knows that every challenge, every difficulty, every unexpected twist in life is an invitation to evolve into a stronger, wiser version of herself. Fear will always whisper, "Stay where you are, don't risk it, don't step forward." But boldness, guided by wisdom, says, "Yes, this may be uncomfortable, but it is shaping me into who I am meant to become." When a woman dares to embrace growth, she says yes to God's way of molding her into something greater than she imagined. In daily life, this truth appears again and again. Think of a young woman who receives an opportunity to work in a new city. She has never lived away from her family, and the thought of leaving everything familiar fills her with anxiety. Fear tells her to decline, to remain in the security of what she knows. But growth often hides in the unknown. When she says yes, she steps into a season of new experiences, meeting people from different walks of life, learning independence, discovering strengths she never realized she had. At first, the nights may be lonely and the challenges may feel overwhelming. But over time, she blossoms, her confidence grows, her perspective widens, and she realizes that what once scared her actually transformed her. That single bold decision to say yes to growth changes her life forever. Growth also comes through struggles that we don't choose. A woman may face loss, disappointment, or failure. In those moments, it is easy to ask, "Why me? Why this pain?" But when she looks deeper, she begins to see that even these difficulties carry lessons. Boldness in this context means not running away from pain, but leaning into it with faith. It means daring to trust that every wound can become wisdom, every setback can become strength, and every ending can lead to a new beginning. A wise woman does not allow struggles to harden her heart. Instead, she lets them polish her soul. She says yes to growth, even when growth arrives disguised as hardship. An everyday example can be found in learning new skills. Imagine a woman who has never touched technology, but suddenly needs to adapt in a workplace that relies on it. At first, she feels incapable, embarrassed, and tempted to give up. Yet boldness tells her to persist. She asks questions, she practices, she makes mistakes, and slowly she learns. With each step, her confidence builds. Soon, the very thing that once intimidated her becomes part of her strength. In this way, boldness is not about avoiding what is difficult. It is about embracing it as a tool for personal evolution. Growth often requires letting go. Sometimes it means leaving behind habits, relationships, or environments that no longer serve our highest purpose. This can be the hardest part of saying yes to growth. A wise woman knows that clinging to what is safe can keep her small. Imagine someone who remains in a job that drains her spirit simply because it is stable. She knows deep within that she is meant for more, but fear tells her to stay. One day she decides to trust the nudge in her heart. She resigns, steps into uncertainty, and begins a new journey. The beginning is shaky, but the freedom she experiences allows her to discover passions and opportunities she would never have encountered if she had not let go. Her yes to growth becomes the turning point of her destiny. What makes this path so inspiring is that growth is not only about personal achievement, it also uplifts those who witness it. A mother who dares to grow spiritually through meditation and self-reflection naturally inspires her children to value inner peace. A sister who dares to step out of her comfort zone motivates her siblings to believe in themselves. A colleague who embraces learning sets an example for the entire team. In this way, every act of growth becomes an act of service because it lights the way for others. Saying yes to growth also means embracing failure as a teacher. Many people avoid trying because they are afraid to fail. But a wise woman understands that failure is not the end. It is a mirror that reflects what must be refined. Boldness allows her to look at her mistakes without shame and instead extract the lessons hidden within them. She does not see failure as proof of weakness, but as evidence that she had the courage to try. And each failure, rather than breaking her, builds her into someone wiser, humbler, and stronger. At the heart of it, saying yes to growth is saying yes to God's shaping hand. Life is like a sculptor, and we are like clay. If the clay resists but remains formless, but when it yields, when it allows the pressure of the sculptor's hand, it transforms into something beautiful. The pressure may be uncomfortable, even painful, but the end result is a masterpiece. In the same way, when a woman dares to embrace change, challenge, and uncertainty, she allows herself to be molded into the masterpiece God intended her to be. So, boldness is not always about big leaps. Sometimes it is about small, daily yeses. Yes to waking up earlier for self-discipline. Yes to apologizing when pride says stay silent. Yes to learning when it is easier to ignore. Yes to forgiveness when holding a grudge feels safer. Each yes, no matter how small, is a brick laid in the foundation of growth. And over time, these bricks build a life of strength, wisdom, and fulfillment. This is why boldness means saying yes to growth. Because every yes opens a new door. Every yes expands the soul. Every yes brings a woman closer to her true potential. Growth may not always be easy, but it is always worth it. And when a woman guided by faith dares to embrace it, she not only transforms her own life, but also becomes a living example that growth is the most beautiful form of courage. Boldness aligned with God creates impact beyond measure. Many people think of boldness only as a personal quality, something that benefits the individual who practices it. But when a woman dares to act with courage that is rooted in her connection with the divine, her influence flows far beyond her own life. Her boldness becomes a channel through which God's light spreads into the world. It touches people she may never meet, heals wounds she may never see, and plants seeds she may never know will grow. This is the mysterious and beautiful power of boldness when it is aligned with God. It creates ripples that move far beyond human calculation. A woman who aligns her courage with God understands that her strength does not come from her own will alone. She knows her will is limited, her knowledge is partial, and her power is small. But when she surrenders her choices to the divine and steps forward with faith, she carries a strength much greater than her own. This allows her to walk into rooms with quiet confidence, not because she believes she is superior, but because she knows she is supported. Her boldness does not intimidate, it uplifts. It does not compete, it inspires. It does not divide, it unites. This kind of courage becomes a vessel of impact, not just action. In daily life, examples of this can be seen everywhere. Imagine a woman who chooses to speak truth in an environment of dishonesty. She could stay silent, protecting her own comfort. But she decides to align her courage with God's values of truth. Her words may be uncomfortable to hear, but they awaken others. Someone who was too afraid to speak may now find their voice. Another who was lost in dishonesty may feel convicted to change. Her single act of boldness becomes a spark that transforms the atmosphere. She might never know how deeply her choice influenced others, but the impact is there, silent, lasting, immeasurable. Boldness aligned with God also creates healing. Think of a woman who forgives when the world tells her to hold on to anger. To forgive is one of the boldest acts a human being can do because it means choosing peace over revenge, compassion over bitterness. Her decision may not make headlines, but it transforms relationships, softens hearts, and restores harmony. Those who witness her choice are inspired, reminded that forgiveness is not weakness but strength. In that moment, she becomes an instrument of God's healing in a world that desperately needs it. Another way this alignment creates impact is through unseen influence. Many times, people think impact only happens through visible achievements, awards, or recognition. But some of the greatest influence comes quietly. A woman who dares to live with integrity, even when no one is watching, leaves behind an invisible trail of inspiration. Her children grow up absorbing her values without needing lectures. Her colleagues sense her honesty and begin to trust her deeply. Even strangers watching her kindness in small acts are touched in ways she may never realize. This is the beauty of boldness rooted in God. It does not always shout, but it always shines. Consider also how such boldness affects generations. A grandmother who dared to stand firm in her faith despite hardships passes that courage down to her children and grandchildren. Her descendants may not even know all the sacrifices she made, but they carry the fruits of her choices. They inherit resilience, values, and strength that shape their own journeys. This is why boldness aligned with God cannot be measured. It continues long after the woman herself is gone, woven into the lives of those she touched directly and indirectly. Boldness also creates opportunities for others to rise. A woman who dares to step into leadership while keeping her humility shows the world that strength and kindness can coexist. Her actions open doors for other women who thought leadership was not for them. A student who dares to choose honesty over shortcuts inspires her peers to do the same. A professional who refuses to compromise her values, even under pressure, sets a new standard for everyone around her. In each of these cases, boldness multiplies. It does not remain confined to one life. It spreads like light passed from one candle to another, illuminating countless others. The most powerful impact of boldness aligned with God is that it leaves behind not just accomplishments, but legacies. People may forget the exact words spoken or the specific deeds done, but they never forget the spirit of someone who lived with God-centered